With all its great old buildings, St. Louis has always been a great place for rehabbers. The trick, of course, is timing. There have always been winners and losers. But the subprime mortgage mess is really affecting some of those areas now and longtime residents. Tonight, how one St. Louis neighborhood is facing the mortgage crisis. The mortgage crisis in a lot of city neighborhoods looks different than it might in, say, St. Charles County. Certainly, there are homeowners who may have run into problems in a neighborhood like Dutchtown on St. Louis's south side. But what you really notice is the boarded-up two-family and four-family flats. It may look like urban decline, but Kelly Kress of the Dutchtown South Community Corporation says a lot of the problem came because the neighborhood was on the upswing, and that attracted investors and speculators.
Dutchtown has a very high percentage of rental properties, so that the majority of the foreclosures in this area are investment properties. They're not owner-occupied. They were properties that were acquired either as an immediate investment or to be held on to as the neighborhood improves. They can then flip it.
It's not like me buying this to live in and then rent out the
Not
other.
at all.
Property values were going up. This was a hot area, or considered the next hot area. So there were those who took out some pretty risky loans in hopes of making a profit, and it worked, at least for a while. But then the bubble burst. It burst in California, and it burst in South St. Louis. And they were beginning to see foreclosures before many of the rest of us were hearing about that sort of thing.
Probably 4 to 5 years ago, we started seeing the first crop of them because the people who were getting loans, who shouldn't have been getting loans for the investment properties, were defaulting on them already. Yeah. So it's not that all of a sudden we had this big crisis. Yeah. It's been going on. The difference is now the investors who bought them at the foreclosure sale are being foreclosed on. And then it gets foreclosed on again. And now we've got a property that's on its third, maybe fourth owner. You've got just the simple effects of, nobody's maintaining the exterior. Nobody's cutting the grass.
And the longer it goes, the worse it gets.
The worse it gets. Yeah. Buildings don't maintain themselves. So a small problem becomes a big problem. So then the chances of that building being purchased gets slimmer and slimmer until we get to a problem where, it's a gut rehab.
But that actually might be good news for somebody like Sam Meller.
Our last project was a 12-family that we turned into 9 units, and that one's huge. We were there for 5 years.
He's in the business of getting buildings for cheap and almost always does a gut rehab. Right now, he's turning this old Tower Grove two-family flat into a single-family home, and this is a pretty small project for him. But other rehabbers, like investors, have seen their projects and their finances end in failure and foreclosure.
We're like a 90% sweat equity business, so we don't have a lot of these problems. But if you hired everything out, your margin is small. And if the market turns down or it doesn't turn as far up as you think it's going to, your margin could be gone. And if you're borrowing money and you can't sell it now and you got to sit on it for 6 months, you've got every dollar you're going to put in that building in it. It's maximum interest on you every month. So if it sits for 6 months or a year, that could be the difference between I made money and I lost. So here it is.
So how do you? Yeah, and not much here. So this is a gut. Rehab.
A lot of people are drawn in. In the past 3 or 4 years, have been drawn into this business, seeing how much you can buy a building for $100 and sell for $400, and they go, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be rich." I would recommend you start with a smaller building and kind of, don't immediately get in over your head.
It's a market decline, not a crash, and Meller can survive because he knows the business. Others can survive because they've got the money and can afford to wait it out, even if all they're doing is holding on to an empty building.
A lot of the guys who are actually sitting on buildings have the money to sit. They've got the deep pockets, and I don't have a whole lot of love for that because they're basically waiting for me and other people to turn the neighborhood around so they can sell their building for more money.
But here's the complication for neighborhoods like Dutchtown. Even with a good rehabber, a good plan, and a cheap building, a project might simply not get off the ground.
There are a couple issues that complicate the matter. If I'm someone who's going to come in, I'm going to buy this property, which is listed for $23,900. I'm going to buy it for that price.
$23,900?
That's what I said, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for a brick 4-family.
Yeah.
So they're going to acquire the property. They're going to put money into it. Even if, at that price, even if they put $100,000 into it, it's still a sound investment. They now have to find a comparable property that has sold within the past 18 months for that price so that the bank will lend them that extra money.
Right.
Or they have to have the cash in hand.
And finding a comparable sale is hard.
Very hard, very hard. That's the effect that is damaging the rest of the neighborhood, is people who want to buy, who want to move in, they can't get the loan. You know, there are people who are seeing it as an opportunity. We're just hoping that there are people who are seeing it as an opportunity to do something now rather than wait it out and make their money in a couple years and have it be vacant.
Some came here to make a quick buck, and when it didn't add up, they walked away. Others had a plan that just didn't work out when the market changed. Neighborhoods that recover from the mortgage crisis will probably have to fall back on their original strength, the people who choose to live here, people who are invested in too many ways to walk away, and will work a little harder to get the ball rolling again.